So glad you guys are here. Hopefully all your fingers are still on your body from an eventful 4th of July. And there's really no better person on the planet probably to train us the day after 4th of July than Jason Steyer, who is Mr. America, all about the veterans, crushing the VA loan.
It looks like police lights behind me, right?
It does, man. It looks like you're about to get pulled over.
Yep. Been there.
So
we're all aware.
Been there. So guys, today I'm excited about the whole month of July because it's always fun when you get to hear from other people and get outside of just the people you're coached by all the time, because there's just so many brilliant people out there with unbelievable perspectives and insight that we need in our lives. And so today we get to kick that off with a good friend of mine, my pickleball partner.
Yes, undefeated.
We are undefeated. We are 3-0 in our short-lived career.
Yeah, it's over now.
Yeah, we may pick it back up, or we might just stay undefeated. You never know. Yeah. But guys, here's why Jason's here. He is a top originator that's unbelievable at what he does, but he's also figured out how to travel and speak all over the country. He's an unbelievable dad and husband. And so I'm always fascinated by people that do all the things well, because there's a lot of people that crush business, but then I learn their personal life and I'm like, ooh, nope, not modeling you, because I actually want to keep my wife and I want my kids to value me. And so I will not be taking your business advice. But Jason is one of the few guys that I know that he crushes it in his business, but he's created leverage so that he can travel around teaching people how to do VA loans, sit in front of a group full of realtors and help them understand like why VA loans shouldn't be shoved down to the bottom of the pile in offer situations. And I'm just pumped. And so I'm going to shut up and I'm going to just turn the floor over to Jason. And then I might even turn my camera off to try to find my remote control so that I can not look like I look right now. So Jason,
you look fantastic, by the way, in case you're wondering.
Well, it's more about like my background doesn't look as cool when you can see all the white around it. So it's letting it.
Now that you point that out, yes, you're correct.
It's not as much about me, but bro, I appreciate you so much, man. Thanks for being on.
Yeah.
Pour into us.
We'll do it. All right. I appreciate you. And I appreciate you all for being here. Is everybody on this call originators? Is there a mix? Is it
lenders,
realtors,
title. We got Scott Payne, like he serves the mortgage community and beyond through technology. So We've got a little bit of mix of everything.
Good. All right, cool. Hopefully what I'm going to share with you today is not pertaining just to the LO or the originator business model. It pertains to just business and life in general. And that's what I like to transcend, right? We're all people at the end of the day, right? And we have families to serve. We have communities to serve. And just to give you a little background on me so you understand some context, I'm going to share some things with you that are personal. And I share these when I speak because I think in our industries or just any industry that's out there, especially with social media now and all these things where people have instant access to us, sometimes we feel like we have to be perfect, that we have to hit everything every time, that we're not allowed to be real human beings. And if anybody who knows me, and Kyle knows me, is that I'm a very blunt person. I have no filter. It's just the way I was raised. It's the way my dad raised us. And I don't mean it to be disrespectful to people. Sometimes I hit nerves and it's done intentionally. My job and what I love to do is to get the best out of people. And as I was raised by my father, who was a Vietnam veteran, both my grandfathers served in World War II, and my older brother was a combat medic in Desert Shield and Storm, and then combat deployments after that. So when I tell you that I was raised in that arena of hard charging people who have no filter, I come by it honestly. Part of this journey that I've been on, and I want to share with you guys, I've created some, what I would consider foundational principles. And there's 3 of them. And I'm going to share those with you. I've been in the mortgage industry going on 21 years. So I've survived for that long. Sometimes it's been a little bit hellish. I was born and raised in Oklahoma. When I moved to Texas, it'd be 12 years ago. In November, I moved from a place where I knew everybody and had spent years in the business and to a place where I knew no one and had to start from scratch in a place. And if anybody's been to Oklahoma City knows that Oklahoma City's not Dallas. Kyle knows, he's been there. It's a totally different arena that you're in with people who are honestly a hell of a lot smarter than me. And in a time in my life, in that season that I was in, it threw me in a horrible bout of depression. Because I come from a world where I succeed. I played sports at a high level. I played in the U.S. national program in soccer when I was a kid, and I played in the Olympic development program. And then I get to this, and I can't make a dent. And it screwed me up big time. And there were days that I remember that I couldn't get out of bed for 3 or 4 days. I almost lost my family because of it, because I felt like I had to be perfect. Because this industry tells you that if you're not everything to everyone, then you're a failure. You have to know every guideline. You have to know every loan program. You have to know everything. And that's what I thought, that I had to be that person because I had no idea who I was. So I had a coach, and he's still one of my closest friends to this day, who had a conversation with me, and a real honest, blunt conversation. And this is where this started 10 years ago. And what he taught me is the first principle that I believe in business is that you have to go through a period of discovery. That's number one. You have to discover who you are, who you want to be when you grow up. Even at my age, I'll be 50 in October. I was 40 years old, trying to figure out who I wanted to be when I grew up. And has anybody used DISC and Briggs Meyer and all those things in their business with their teammates? Okay. So I had no idea what that was. And so I took mine, and he told me, this is who you are. But I think that in my world, in our world for the originator side, and I think this is true of any business, but there are branch managers or bosses or people who are what I call managers, not leaders. There are managers out there who will tell you there's only one way to be successful. You have to do it my way. And if you can't do that, then you're not going to be successful, and we're going to throw you aside, basically. We're not going to spend any time with you whatsoever. And I experienced that a lot through my travels in this business. And I never really realized it. And obviously until somebody pointed it out. So if we're hiring teammates, if we're looking at ourselves, and for me, it was like, okay, I need to go on this journey of discovery about who I am. And he helped me design a business around who I was. And I think that is the best thing that we can do for people, is help them figure out who they are. Not tell them who they have to be, but who they are. And I'm a executive coach for a veteran charity called the Honor Foundation. The Honor Foundation deals specifically with men and women in the special operations community, operators, as well as their support staff. And so I'm going to give you a little context on this, and that people think that they have to know who they are all the time. There are different seasons in your life that you will go through as a father, a husband, a business owner, and you're going to change. Your DISC profile will change over time. And if you don't take it and continually self-assess, you're going to have a hard time. Even the men and women. So a lot of these guys are SEALs. They are MARSOC. They work in the unit. So they work in Delta. They work in all these different facets of some of the best trained, highly trained, motivated people on the planet. And it's time for them to retire, and they have no clue who they're going to be when they get out. Not a clue. It's our job, my job as a coach, to help them figure out who they are. And they go through a process to do those things. And what I've seen in the mortgage business is people will quit. They will get so frustrated. They will just quit. They'll throw their hands up and say, I can't do it anymore. All because we as leaders did not take them by the hand and walk alongside them instead of drag them along with us. And in this season that we're in, how many people have been in the business back in 2008? Anybody? Raise your hand. Yeah, a few people. We all know what that was like. That was a beatdown. And a lot of people had to reinvent themselves. We had a lot of those subprime loan slingers around that were sending everything to Option One and all those companies that got sued and no longer around. When that time happened, they had to reinvent themselves. If they didn't, they had to do something else. And so this season that we're in, you can either see it as take some time to figure out what you want and discover who you are through those processes and lead your people, or you might have a hard time. And I can guarantee you're going to have a hard time. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is dedication. For me, it was a lot of self-assessment about who I was, what I wanted, and who I was going to dedicate my career to. Because what I told myself was this: either I'm going to dedicate my career to something that's meaningful, or I'm going to go mow lawns. That's it. That was my resolve. Because just slinging loans to sling loans, just because I wanted to go out and do loans and that was no longer a valid way for me to move forward in this business. I hated it. I despised everything about what this business was. And in my conversations with my wife, with my coach at the time, with my dad, and both my grandfathers have been gone for some time, but is that I had to find somebody I connected with on a personal level. And they're out there. Our loan programs are tied to personal things. If you're trying to solve a problem, I started doing a lot of VA loans 10 years ago when they weren't really cool at all. And I got a lot of pushback. But one thing I am is I'm not a quitter. My father did not raise quitters in his two sons. And this is the only loan program in existence that's tied to a federal benefit due to service. They earn this right. I have friends that have come back from combat with less legs and arms than they started with. I have friends, and I'm going to give you my brother who had multiple combat deployments. I have not spoken to him in 22 years. He became a recluse. He's never owned a home, never been married, no kids, no nothing. And we've been at war for 20 years. So they've earned the right to this benefit. So for me, I have personal attachment. My father did not use his VA home loan benefit until he was 60 years old. 60. I'm going to give you a stat, and you can feel free to use this. This is something that research we did in the Honor Foundation. We did a survey of men and women who are still serving in the special operations community and those who have gotten out, some of our fellows through the Honor Foundation program. 90% of them told us it was easier for them to prepare for war and go into combat than it was to transition into civilian life. They would rather go to war and take the chance of dying than to transition back into the civilian world. If that stat doesn't just sum it up, I don't know what does. So knowing those things, for me, I dedicated my career, like Kyle said, I travel the country speaking at events, I teach classes, I host masterminds, I speak to servicemen and women, I speak to those who have transitioned into the civilian world, spouses, you name it, about this benefit. Because 18% of eligible men and women who have served this country have only used this benefit, 18%. Now, in the state of Texas, we're at about 25% military home ownership rate, which is decent, but nationally it's 18%. So I'm gonna ask you a question, and you don't have to answer now, but this is something that I want you to think about. Do you serve your community, and do you serve people with passion? You cannot replicate passion. The fake it till you make it stuff is absolute crap. It only will get you so far. At some point, they're gonna see through whatever you've fictitiously built. And if you can stand in front of a room, in front of a group of people, whether it's agents, LOs, the community that you're serving, for whatever service that you provide on the title side and all these things, and serve that community with passion to affect their life, you may have something, right? But if you're standing in front of a room of people talking to them about 30-year mortgages or title insurance, that is death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's fact, right? What I want you guys to think about is, how can you go into your community and truly affect a life, not sell something? When I stand in front of a room of people and I'm about to give a speech, the first thing that I tell them is, I'm not here to sell you anything. What we're saying to you, and I'm going to tell you, is out there for public consumption. But I'm going to give this to you in a way that has not been delivered to you before, right? I'm going to get raw and real and talk about mental health and talk about the things that affect everybody. Because at the end of the day, we're all human, right? Kyle and I are fathers. I'm sure most of you here are. Your mothers, your brothers, sisters, uncles. And the one thing that dedication can provide is time. Time is the only commodity we can never make more of. And it is imperative that in that time, like for me, I like to serve the veteran community. I like to spend time with my family. Sometimes I have a 10-year-old son. Some days I like him, some days I don't, because he's me on steroids some days. He's no filter and he's smart like his mother, and that's a deadly combination, okay? But I like to spend time with my family. So as you're spending time in that community, dedicating yourself to them, serving them with passion, becomes down to processes. Do you have processes in place to give yourself time back? It's a very important question to ask yourself. One thing that I've tried to do in my business, and that dedication, is to a standard. You got to dedicate yourself to a standard, because if you just go through this process of whatever you're doing in whatever role that you're in, if you can't communicate your standard to the people you're trying to speak to or communicate to, it might be hard for you, because there are things in our businesses now, and I just actually made a post in my group about that this morning, is days of closing on time, closing quick, those are all standards now. Those used to be little shiny pennies we could all chase. They're not anymore. What we have to do in that process, and one of the things that I found that's worked really well for us, is to be able to communicate that standard in how am I going to give the people that I'm serving that time back? If I've got a military family that's PCSing back from Korea or Turkey or Japan, my one job is to make sure that they come back to the United States without stress of wondering if they're going to have a place to come to. And if I can't reverse engineer that process to make them feel like I have created a process for them, then I have failed them. That's how I see it. If you're in the title side, same thing, communicating during closings. If you're an agent, communicating with your buyers and everybody involved in the process, to remember that standard that we adhere ourselves to is number one in dedication. And if you listen to the Command Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, they just changed hands about 2 months ago. This guy is a Marine's Marine, and I love him. I wish I could burst him into quadruplets and put him everywhere, because the first thing out of the man's mouth when he took this role is the Chief Enlisted of the Marine Corps was, we are going to get back to the standard that makes us Marines, not all these other things that we see in our society that I consider to be distractions. We are going to get back to the basics of upholding people to the rigid adherence to a standard. That is dedication. So assess that. Do some self-assessment. Am I doing what I can do? Have I built my process? Can I communicate my process to uphold a standard, and not just, am I just being a little cog in the wheel that goes around and round? I think it's a beautiful thing for us to be able to do in our business, in our life. I have these conversations with my family. We have a standard in my house. As a father, I hold my son to a standard, and that standard will not be lowered, period. You meet it or there's consequences. Same thing with my team. We have a standard, we coach to it, we learn to it. We always are manipulating a little bit to always provide better value. That is a dedication that a lot of people don't have these days. They just go through the motions. And if you can articulate that, if you're an LO on this call, especially, if you can articulate that to the people that you serve, man, that is a value that a lot of people can't provide. Or they just don't have to. They have no written process. And the last one that I'm going to share with you is drive. That is the third foundation that I've built my entire business on, is drive. That drive to be the best at what I do. And that doesn't mean I have to close 1,000 loans a year, just so you know. That is a fallacy that we create within our own business. I hate that. It drives me insane. But I try to position myself as an educator. Education is what drives me. Education is agnostic. It doesn't care who you work for, what you do. If you love USDA loans or serve in the rural communities, if you love to serve the underserved markets, if you love to serve veterans, dogs, it doesn't matter. Educating people, especially with this process. If you put a poll, one thing that I would encourage you to do, if you have a database of clients, put a poll out there to them. Ask them what they think about the loan process or the mortgage process, or if it's a tech process or whatever the service that you're selling. Ask them about the process. Ask them what they think about it. Poll them. By polling your constituents, you can find out empirical data to serve them better. But people get afraid to ask questions because they're afraid of what the answers are going to be. You can't be afraid to get feedback. Every 30 days, I poll my own team. What can I do better as a leader to help you? Not just within our business, but at home. What can I help you if you want to be a better mother or father or whatever it is? Because I don't know if any of you guys have read the book Extreme Ownership, but there's a workbook that you can buy, okay? I use this workbook every month with my realtor partners. I use this workbook with my team. I've made my now 20-year-old son read the book 3 times. He hates me for it, but it's okay. Why? Because my job is to make him a better human, right? Because someday I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to always be around to help him. And these principles, these guiding principles in this book are what I conduct my team by. That's my drive, is to succeed. My drive is to, like Kyle said, I travel the country speaking. I went to Alaska a few weeks ago. That time change is hell if anybody's ever been there. It is awful. But I go to Florida, Virginia, Arizona. I've been to Oklahoma. I've been to Maine, Delaware. People invite me to come speak to educate them on how they can be better to serve the veteran community. That's why I get out of bed every day. That's my drive. Because all of these things that I do inside my business can also be translated to my personal life. My kids are watching me. My wife is watching me. That doesn't mean you have to work 24/7. This, I'm working weekends and days and midnights is crap, because it's not a sustainable model. You can't do it. Because let me give you this scenario. Let me give you my example. Well, say I'm on the phone with a real estate team, and I tell this real estate team that I work nights, weekends, you call, my phone's always on. I got you, right? They call me on the 4th of July and I've had a few too many cocktails and my white behind's floating in the pool. I ain't answering my phone. Guess what I've made myself? A liar. You can't do that, right? The drive to succeed does not mean you have to work 24/7. It's not a 24/7 business. You can build this life by design because of the drive that you have, the drive to serve the community. Mine's the veteran community. I talk to people, and this is at 2:00 in the morning in Afghanistan sometimes, because they're single people coming home. That's my dedication. That's my drive to serve them. That's my foundation. Sometimes I tell them no. But the great thing about our life, and the great thing about this business, and whatever business you're in, is you have a choice. You have a choice in who you partner with. You have a choice in how you market. You have a choice on how you build a life and a business by design. You have all of this access to information that we've never had in the history of mankind, right? You've got guys like Kyle who will pour into you. And much like me, there's days that I forget that I need to market to make money. I do things because I truly want to help people. There's that balance in your life, in your business, that you have to have. And there's people, like Leah's on this call, she knows I will help people. As long as it's not detrimental to my health or my family, I'm going to help you. And I think people know that about me, but they also know that my business is in a box. But whatever business that you're in, the educational foundation is always there. You can always educate people on what you do, always. When you think you've said it enough, regurgitate it. It's really that simple. Somebody said to me the other day, and I feel like this sometimes, is that I've said they're all there is to know about VA home loans. I think I've said it all. But here's the thing. I'm going to wrap up with this and give Kyle some time back here. Is the minute you think that you've said what you need to say, what you need to everybody out there, is the minute that those people who haven't heard you are going to go to somebody else, and they're not going to get as good a deal as you would give them, or be taken care of the way that you would take care of them, and they lose. I could stop today and never say another word about it, but that E5 that's about to medically retire, he needs me. He needs me to help him through this transition process. That realtor who's been in the business for 10 minutes, literally needs my help in crafting a deal so that client is set up for financial success and not financial failure. That is a heavy burden to bear. I'm not gonna lie. But if not me, then who? That's a saying that the Travis Manion Foundation has adopted, and Ryan Manion, Travis's sister, started this foundation years ago. Travis was a career Marine, dad's a retired colonel who was blown up by an IED in combat. And Ryan, his sister, started the Travis Manion Foundation a year ago. And Travis's one thing he told all his Marines, he told his sister, he told his dad, is if not me, then who? If I don't lead these Marines into combat, who's going to do it? And while I'm not being shot at, there's no bullets whizzing past my head, and I have no threat of stepping on IEDs every day, the responsibility is still mine. That is my weight to bear, and it's yours too. It's yours to bear that weight in your community, but I promise you're up for it. And it's coaching programs like Kyle that I love, because they will give you the real world, no BS assessment of those things, but also give you the tools and the encouragement that you need, and the high fives to get out there and make a difference in the world that you live in. Because this market is crazy. And the one thing that I'm going to encourage you to do is see it as an opportunity and not a burden. Okay.
It's good, bro.
That's all I have. And I thank you guys for listening to me ramble on for.
Well, I'm going to ask you to talk about something else in a minute, but I just wanted to share two quick things. One, what Jason was just talking about, y'all know my favorite book is Still Like an Artist. And on page 8 of it, the author quotes a French writer that says, everything that needs to be said has already been said, but since no one was listening, everything must be said again. There's just nothing more true than that. Our lives are so busy. Most of the time, we're so selfishly going through them that I don't remember what I said today, much less what Leah said last week. And so this is why we just have to be mindful that when I think I'm a broken record, it may be that 12th time that the right person was paying attention and it turns into an opportunity to serve. The second thing I wanted to say, Jason, from everything you've been talking about is, guys, I think sometimes we don't think we can help people in the ways we're capable of. We typically assume the way that I help people is with social media because that's how I make money, right? You help people by selling a house, doing a loan, selling a service. The reality is there could be something that has nothing to do with your business that could be the greatest value you have to give to somebody. And it could be the one thing that results in 10 opportunities in your business. We just never know. We have no idea. We have no idea. And so see yourself as worthy of more. You might have a young realtor that just had a baby and your kids are in high school. And what they need the most from you is just that love and support of, it's going to get better. I promise. I promise. And it'll be through that connecting on parenting that they become a new business partner for you. We've just got to stop leading with just product all the time.
Yeah. We're in the people business, right? We're in the relationship.
100%.
And I'm going to tell you that during COVID, when everybody was on lockdown and even after with people getting COVID and things like that, I bet you we sent out, me and my wife, okay, not as a business, as people. I bet you we sent out 100 orders of Spoonful of Comfort, of chicken soup to people who were just feeling bad. Or they had claustrophobia from being stuck in their house all the time. Because at the end of the day, I think, and even I struggle with this sometimes, we forget that we're in the people business. Yes, we do loans to make money. We sell title insurance or a service or a house or whatever that is. But if we don't make everlasting relationships by just treating them like human beings, you are a flash in the pan because somebody is going to come along and do something greater than you're doing. They're going to sell a lower rate. They're going to sell it as a cheaper service. They're going to sell all these things that's going to be cheaper. It's a race to the bottom. None of us are going to be making any money anytime soon. And that's where you end up. And I have an agent who's one of my closest friends. We vacation with them 3 or 4 times a year as friends. And she has LOs approaching her and her team who close about 248 transactions a year. You know what she tells them when they want their business? You have to come work for me. And it's not because I'm the cheapest in town. It's because I built such a lasting relationship with them because we just click. We're humans, right? I help them when I get nothing in return, zero. I help them keep deals together or help their son get across country to go to NASCAR mechanic school in Rockingham, North Carolina. Not because I'm making anything out of it, because we're people.
Jason, talk about for just a couple minutes. You've got the cardboard cutouts of you behind you.
Those are life size too, man. They're actual size.
I thought I had the life size, but mine's only this big. And but I have a sticker that you gave me that has, I think it's the one over your left shoulder.
Yep.
And so you said earlier, like, you don't think about content all the time because, again, you just do this to love people. You don't only do it when a camera's on, right? But you do content at a very high level. So can you just talk practically for a couple minutes about like why that's so important?
Yeah, no, that's great because 35,000 foot view is we have the ability to reach so many people right now in this world through all our social platforms and all the technology that we have and through video emails and all these different things. And putting out relevant content. I'm not talking about the greatest next shiny penny thing. I'm talking about the basics of what you do, basics of who you are, what makes you you. That's content. People think that you have to sell something to put out content, right? Gary Vee is the primary example. Do you ever see him sell anything? Nothing. He sells nothing. He talks, and they chop it up into clips. He cusses like a sailor. People love it, and he throws it on social media. But he attracts his target client. So content, I'll call it, do you guys follow Brendan Burchard?
Yep.
Yeah, if you don't, do it. I love Brendan. His story's amazing. His dad's a retired Marine colonel. I saw him speak live at a Built How event last year. But Brendan calls it the content rhythm. What is your content rhythm? So I have a journal on my phone when I'm having conversations with Kyle or Leah or anybody. If they're talking about things, oh shit, that'll make a great content piece. Type it down in my notes. That'll make a great content. That's a good video series. Oop, type it in my notes. I've got a notes section that is as long as your leg with all the content. And the content that you put out, and why it's so important is because that person that needed to hear it may not heard it that day. Maybe they were not on social media. Maybe they're going to see it in the next couple of weeks when you post it, when you regurgitate that information. That's why content is so important. People need to hear who you are, not what you sell, who you are on a consistent basis. Consistency is always the key. So you got to keep up that content rhythm. If that's shooting all your content on Friday morning, calendar, put it on your calendar. Block that time off. I got to spend 2 hours shooting content. Do it in one day, get it out of the way. Maybe you're going to do some live interviews with some people that can help you spread that information. Maybe a mastermind that you've recorded. And most of this stuff it just pops into my head. It's not like I sit around going, this is a content time to think. It's just natural. And it's natural for you too. It's just got to become top of mind.
It's good, bro. First of all, thank you for all your wisdom and encouragement and kicking the butt, really, that I think we need multiple times to stay on track.
Yeah.
Anybody have any thoughts or questions
that
you want to ask Jason?
About anything.
Jason, you were mentioning drive earlier. For agents and/or lenders that might be new, feel like they're starting over, what did that look like for you? If you could pair those together, your move to Texas, I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is why I'm asking, I would imagine your drive potentially had to increase when you got here. Maybe it didn't though, and that's what I want to know. But comparing those things together, piecing it together, what does that look like for someone getting started, battling a market? Does it ebb and flow?
Yep.
What does that look like?
No, for sure. That's a great question. And yes, when I moved to Texas, when I was in Oklahoma, I was born and raised there. I spent 38 years of my life in Oklahoma. I knew everyone where I lived. So when I moved to Texas, I thought it was going to be the same way. I had this delusion that I was going to move here and suddenly, I still have my business in Oklahoma. Everything's good. It was literally like starting over from scratch in a brand new business. And so part of that drive that I had to dig deep on, for somebody new. So let's take somebody that just started in the business from yesterday, figuring out what your drive is, and whether it's your family, whether it's a certain buying segment, if you're an agent, okay? Let's say you like first-time homebuyers. Let's say you love rural communities. Let's say that you love education, or you love social media, or you love doing in-person classes, or a combination of all those things. You love marketing. You got to find out what that drive is, okay? Write it down. My drive is education. I'm an educator by nature. It's my natural default. And so I built a business around teaching classes. I taught my first class in Oklahoma about 10 years ago. And I'm telling you right now, it was awful. Absolutely terrible. But I had the drive to succeed. Because here's one thing you cannot do as a coach, anybody. You cannot motivate the unmotivated. You got to have it within you. If you do not have that internal fortitude, that drive to succeed, I'm a competitive, you know what? I hate losing. When I play sports, I like turn into a completely different person. That's where a lot of my drive, it's inherent in me. So that drive is individual. But if it's a new agent, new LO, you got to figure out what your drive is and lean into it, right? And journal those things. Okay, this is what I like. And then design a business plan, reverse engineer that around it. If it's classes and you've never taught one, come up with a curriculum and go teach it. I don't care if you sound like an idiot or not. It doesn't matter. The people who are listening don't care.
And also, Jason, I think what we don't think about enough is even on the classes that Jason thinks suck, the people in the room probably don't share his sentiment because they don't have a clue about what you're coming in as the expert of.
And that's a great point. And I think that's where that's one of the roadblocks is professionals. We put up, we're like, God, man, I got to know everything. Wrong. You don't have to. You don't have to know everything to help someone, okay? You just have to put yourself out there and be willing to take the good and the bad. Honestly, Kyle knows, Leah knows, I don't really care what people think about me. It's just not me, right? I shot a video that I had a sty. It looked like Rocky Balboa punched me in the face. I've read, I shot videos. I don't care because my content and what I'm going to put out there, hopefully it resonates with somebody. They're not going to care what I look like. They just want to hear me. They want to see me show up. They want to see you show up and stand in front of them and care enough about them and put your ego aside to truly help.
Any other questions, guys, before we let Jason go?
Anything, processes.
I was going to ask real quick, and Kyle mentioned earlier that I'm a technology guy. I specialize in lead management, those types of things for customers. It sounds like I heard a lot during your conversation about process, and you have a process that allows you to save time and do things. Can you talk about, I don't know if that helps anybody on the call, just about what that process is? You speak at an event and then you have someone who maybe sign in or whatever. What does that process look like for you to get someone in so you can nurture them long-term?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think that's what we have to do these days, right? We have all this automation that helps our life, right? But you're not going to be replaced by AI, but you might be replaced by somebody who uses it. That's my mentality with it. And I'm not a techie by any means. I'm feeble at best. But what I have done, to Scott's point, is let's say that I'm in an event speaking. I have a couple of teammates. I have a loan partner and I have a processor that work for me who are both military spouses, right? So they understand the culture. That's number one. And I have their process down of how we intake a customer, right? Even when I'm absent and I don't have the ability to speak to them because they speak on behalf of me. I've empowered them to do that. But from a tech standpoint, if borrowers want to apply, our whole process is automated. It's in the lead flow system, in these things. We have automation firing off at different levels and different things. On a customer side, if I'm signing in an event, if we got realtors or LOs even signing in at events, it signs in through a landing page that goes right into my contact management system that assigns a lead tag to them so I know where they come from. And I can follow up with them like that. It'll shoot off different journeys and different automations depending on who they are. I use BombBomb a lot. I love video email. I created a chat GPT guide for realtors and I sent it out to my entire realtor database of about close to 11,000 agents. And here's a free guide. This is one of the things that Kyle was talking about. I don't get anything out of that maybe, except a conversation, which leads to a lead, which leads to a loan. And some of these people I don't even know. They're just people that I've met through traveling in classes and things like that, or I've got databases from different real estate boards that I'm a member of. I'm a member of the Central Panhandle, so in Florida Panhandle, because I do business there. They invite me to come speak. So I get in front of 75 to 85 agents a quarter, and I get to go to Florida and hang out at the beach. But while I'm doing that, automation is taking care of a lot of things. So there's that balance between the human touch and also taking some of the steps out of your life to be able to give yourself time back. Because I know LOs out there that are still taking apps at 9 o'clock at night over the phone. They're sending out their own pre-approval letters at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, taking time away from their family. And there's automation that does that. All of it. And if your worth is tied up into that, maybe to revisit that.
Guys, a simple tip for those of you that really resonate with Jason on being an educator, and you're like, man, that really could, I think, be a great lead source for me. Come up with a speaker fee but then tell them, if you'll give me the contact information of those that attend, I'll do it for free. So like, you don't ever have to charge anybody, but everybody's looking for a deal, right? So just create a fee that you can, right? It's your lost leader is what we call it. And then just say, hey, I'm usually $5,000, but if you'll give me access to your people, I'll do it for free. And then now you're collecting all the information you need, and you were going to do it for free anyway, but you gave yourself a little bit of leverage to make sure you get the data that you need.
That's the one thing Keller and I agree on, is that data is where it's at. Acquiring that data and understanding how to use a database. I have a friend of mine who's an LO here locally in DFW who tracks he's got automations and spreadsheets for everything. He made $75,000 last year on his database alone. I'd like to have that.
Yeah.
And people like that, most of them, not all of them, are the type of people that would share that information with anybody. We get protective, like we own it, like we created this thing. When reality is you didn't. It's not proprietary. And to Kyle's point, is if you help someone get what they want, you're going to get what you want in return. Zig Ziglar, baby. It's the greatest cliche. It's the greatest quote ever, because when it's time for that agent to change teams or look at another brokerage, or LO to change teams or look at another brokerage, if that's somebody you might want to partner with, who do you think they're going to call first? The person who helped them when they got nothing in return.
All right, guys, we took y'all a couple minutes over. I apologize, but man, was it worth it? Jason, you're the best, bro. I appreciate you. I
appreciate
so
the time, man. No, it's good. And if anybody here, Kyle has access, you have access to me. So if you need something, if you want to chat one-on-one about business structure or processes or anything, just hey, I'm always here.
Thanks, bro.
Anytime. Appreciate you.
Hope you had a great time. I hope you took some good notes. I hope you got something you can apply. And I can't wait for next week. We got another awesome guest coming. You'll get a video from them in a few days. So be on the lookout. See y'all soon.